My sister's boyfriend called me a freeloader at my own party, so I let him. Then I ordered a $3,800 meal, put it on his tab, and waited. I'm a forensic accountant. He never realized he was walking into an audit he couldn't possibly pass. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The air at Ellorangery isn't just air, it's a carefully curated atmosphere. It smells like old money, fresh peonies, and a faint, buttery-rich scent from the kitchens that promises perfection. The ceilings are gilded, the crystal glasses are so thin they seem to hum with tension, and the silence is the most expensive thing in the room. A deep, plush quiet broken only by the murmur of conversation and the distant, mournful notes of a solo cello. This was the place I had chosen to celebrate. For 15 years, I had dedicated my life to one goal: partner. At 36, I was the youngest person in my firm's history to make it. It wasn't just a title. It was validation. It was the armor I had built for myself, piece by meticulous piece, ever since our parents passed away and left me, at 22, to raise my 14-year-old sister, Chloe. Tonight was supposed to be the culmination of that journey, my celebration, my treat. The private dining room I'd booked was an alcove of understated luxury, overlooking the restaurant's famous moonlit garden. I'd invited the people who mattered. My sister, Chloe, looking bright and anxious, desperate to be impressed. My oldest friend, Julian, a corporate lawyer whose loyalty was as sharp as his tailored suits. And at Chloe's insistence, her two friends. Alfie, a crypto investor who hadn't blinked in 20 minutes, and Rachel, a lifestyle blogger who was already taking more photos of her bread plate than of the people. And then there was Marcus. Chloe had brought him as her plus one, a man I was meeting for the first time. My initial impression was a flurry of red flags. His teeth were too white, his tan too orange, his cologne too aggressive. It was a scent that didn't just enter a room, it colonized it. He wore a suit that was trying very hard to look custom, but the pull at the shoulders betrayed it as a high-end rental. He was loud. He hadn't stopped talking since they arrived, dropping terms like synergy, disruption, and my next round of funding. He was, as Chloe had breathlessly informed me, a fintech entrepreneur. I had only stepped away for a moment. I was the host, and I was paying for everything. The bill was already eye-watering, and I'd stepped out of the private room to consult with Matthew, the maitre d', about the champagne. I wanted to upgrade from the excellent bottle I'd pre-ordered to a truly spectacular vintage I'd spotted on their reserve list. It was a quiet, authoritative act of self-celebration. When I returned, the cello had just begun a new sonata. I walked back into our private room, a smile on my face, ready to make the toast. And I stopped. Marcus was in my seat. He had moved from his assigned chair and slid into the empty seat at the head of the table. My seat. He was leaning back, a proprietary smirk on his face, one arm draped over the back of the chair. Chloe looked mortified, her face pale. "Marcus, that's Elizabeth's chair." He laughed, a short, barking sound. He looked right at me, his eyes gleaming with a kind of predatory confidence. "Oh, Elizabeth, I was wondering where you went," he said, his voice loud enough for the adjacent tables to hear. He picked up my folded napkin, looked at it, and tossed it onto the empty plate beside him. "This seat's not for freeloaders." The world snapped into a sudden, sharp focus. The cello notes, the buttery air, the clink of distant silver, it all went silent. Julian's face went from amused detachment to quiet, cold fury. He actually started to rise from his chair. Alfie and Rachel just giggled, unsure if it was a joke, but eager to be on the side of the man who seemed to be in charge. And Chloe just stared, her eyes wide, trapped between her awe of this new, shiny man and her loyalty to me. Her silence was the most painful part. I looked at Marcus. I saw the rented suit, the fake watch, the desperate need for validation. He thought this was a power play. He thought he was establishing dominance over the boring older sister. He thought he was the wolf and I was the sheep. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel rage. I felt a click. It was the cold, quiet, satisfying click of a lock falling into place. It was the feeling I got at work just before I broke open a case, the moment the tangled mess of numbers resolved itself into a single, simple, damning pattern. He had called me a freeloader. Me, Elizabeth, the newly minted partner in the restaurant I had booked, at the party I was eyeing for. I gave him a small, tight smile. I didn't say a word. I just nodded, a single deliberate dip of my chin. The betrayal wasn't the insult. I could handle insults. The betrayal was my sister's paralyzed silence, the proof that this man already had his hooks in her. And the insult? The insult was just the green light I needed. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Marcus's smirk widened. He thought he'd won. He thought my silence was submission, my nod an act of surrender. He had just made the single biggest miscalculation of his life. I turned away from the table, from my sister's panicked face and Julian's barely contained rage. I made eye contact with Matthew, the maitre d', who was hovering near the archway, his expression one of pure, professional horror. He had seen the entire exchange. I walked over to him, my heels making no sound on the plush Aubusson carpet. He moved to meet me, his face a mask of polite concern. "Madame," he murmured, "my deepest apologies. Is there something I can?" "Yes, Matthew," I said, my voice low and steady. I didn't look back at the table. I didn't need to. I could feel their eyes on me. "It seems the party dynamic has shifted. I've decided I'll be dining separately." He blinked, momentarily thrown. "Separately, madame?" "Yes, in the lounge perhaps, by the piano. I'm in the mood for something a little quieter." His relief was palpable. I was offering him a way out, a way to de-escalate without a public scene. He was a professional, and he recognized another one. "Of course, madame, an excellent choice. The lounge is very comfortable." "Good," I said. "Please ensure my guests in the private room, all of them, are well taken care of. Let them have whatever they wish. The champagne I selected, the reserve wines, the full tasting menu. Spare no expense." "And the bill, madame?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "The bill," I said, "will be handled, don't worry about that." He gave me a short, respectful bow. "This way, madame." He personally escorted me from the private dining alcove, across the main floor, and into the adjoining bar lounge. It was just as luxurious, but more intimate. Dark wood, plush velvet chairs, and a single, brilliant pianist playing a soft Debussy prelude. And, crucially, it was separated from the main dining room only by a series of grand, open archways. I could see them, they could see me. I sat at a small table, perfectly positioned. I had a clear view of Marcus, who was now holding court, laughing loudly and filling my seat with his obnoxious presence. My phone buzzed. I pulled it from my clutch. A text from Chloe. "Liz, what are you doing? Come back, he was just kidding, you're embarrassing me." Embarrassing her? Not, "I'm so sorry." Not, "Are you okay?" My fingers tightened on the phone. I watched as Rachel and Alfie raised their glasses to Marcus. I saw him pat Chloe's hand. I powered my phone off. Another buzz, this one from my smartwatch. A message from Julian. "Are you okay? I'm ready to flip that table and end this." I typed a single, short reply. "Stay, watch, not a word, I need a witness." I settled into the velvet chair, the soft piano music washing over me. A waiter approached instantly. "Madame, a drink." I looked across the room at the man laughing in my chair. He thought he'd taken my place. He thought I was the freeloader, the quiet, boring accountant who just tagged along. He thought I was an afterthought in my own life. He didn't know what a forensic accountant does. We don't just look at the numbers. We look at the story the numbers tell. We find the lie hidden in the ledger, the fraud buried in the footnotes. We follow the money, and the money always, always tells the truth. Marcus thought he was the main character, but he had forgotten one crucial thing. In my world, the numbers never lie. and I already had his number. The truth is, I've been bailing Chloe out her entire life. Our relationship wasn't just sister to sister, it was caregiver to charge, and it had been that way for 14 years. When our parents died in that car crash, I was 22, staring down the barrel of my final exams for my accounting degree. Chloe was 14, a wreck of teenage hormones and raw, unprocessed grief. I had a job offer, a ticket to the fast-track graduate program at a major firm in London. I turned it down. I stayed, finished my degree at the local university, and took a junior-level job at a mid-sized firm in our hometown. I did it so Chloe could stay in her school, so she could keep her friends, so one part of her life could remain stable. I paid for her braces, I paid for her prom dress, I paid for her first car, and when it came time for college, I paid for that too. She wanted to study event management, a degree that seemed to promise nothing but a lifetime of financial insecurity. I paid for it anyway. When she graduated and decided to start her own boutique, Eve NT coordinating business, I was the one who funded the startup. I paid for the website, the business cards, and the first 6 months of her office lease. When she disastrously underbid a high-profile wedding and ended up $15,000 in the red, I was the one who quietly settled the debt with the caterer and the florist, just to save her reputation. She isn't a bad person, she's just porous. She absorbs the personalities of everyone around her. She has a desperate, aching need to be seen, to be special, and that need makes her a perfect mark. I chose forensic accounting precisely because I am the opposite. I am not porous, I am solid. I don't like chaos or ambiguity. I find a deep, almost spiritual peace in the immutable truth of a balance sheet. You can't lie to a ledger. You can't charm a spreadsheet. The numbers are the numbers, and they always add up. So, when Chloe first mentioned Marcus 4 weeks ago, the red flags weren't just raised. They were practically a military parade. "He's amazing, Liz," she had gushed over the phone. "He's a fintech entrepreneur. He's like a genius. He's going to IPO this year, and he's going to take me to Dubai for New Year's." Fintech entrepreneur. The term itself is a cliché, a catch-all for anyone with a laptop and a rented WeWork desk. IPO is the siren song of the perpetually broke, the thing people say when they have nothing to show. "That's wonderful, Chloe," I'd said, already opening a new tab on my browser. "He's so generous. He sent me this picture of his new watch. It's a Patek Philippe. Can you believe it?" She'd sent me the photo. It was a good fake, a very good fake, but I know numbers. The serial number visible on the clasp was a model number common in high-end replicas. A real Patek owner would never be so gauche as to send a clasp shot anyway. I didn't even have to hire a private investigator. I did it myself on my lunch break. It took less than 90 minutes. The man's name was Marcus Thorne. Marcus Ventures LLC, his supposed fintech company, was indeed registered in Delaware. It had also been dissolved 2 months prior for failure to pay the annual registered agent fee. A $300 fee. Not a good look for a man about to IPO. His car, the sleek black Maserati he'd picked Chloe up in, a high-interest lease, currently 3 months in arrears and in danger of repossession. His address, a short-term rental in a high-rise, the kind favored by people with bad credit and a need to look successful. And then I found the real data. 2 outstanding judgments against him from former business partners in Ohio for wire fraud, a string of small claims court cases, a credit score that I, a professional, would describe as abysmal. A 412, I didn't even know they went that low. He wasn't just a bad boyfriend. He was a predator. He was a financial parasite, and he was sniffing around Chloe because he thought she came from money. He was right, but he had the wrong sister. He saw her freelance business, her nice apartment, which I co-signed for, and he saw an easy target. He saw me, the quiet older sister, the boring accountant, as a freeloader, an appendix. He didn't realize that I am the vault. His insult tonight wasn't just rude, it was a tactical error. He had walked into my world, my celebration, and given me the one thing I needed to act: justification. Sitting in that plush velvet chair, the notes from the piano washing over me, I felt the last vestiges of personal hurt evaporate, replaced by a cold, professional focus. This was no longer a family dinner. It was an audit, and I was about to perform a full-scale asset seizure. The waiter returned, a silent, efficient presence. "Madame, a drink to start." "Yes, thank you," I said. My voice was calm, my hands perfectly steady. "But first, I need to make a special arrangement." I leaned in slightly, adopting a conspiratorial, almost playful tone. "We're playing a bit of a game tonight. My guests in the private room, the gentleman at the head of the table, Marcus, he's insisted on handling everything. He's very traditional." The waiter nodded, his expression neutral. He'd seen it all. I continued, "am going to order my own meal here. But I need you to do something for me. I need you to open a new tab, a separate one, and I need you to put it under his name." He looked hesitant. "Madame, that is highly irregular." "Is it?" I reached into my clutch and pulled out not my credit card, but a crisp $100 bill folded neatly. I slid it across the table. "Just humor me. It's a surprise for him. He loves grand gestures. Please ensure this tab is kept completely separate until the end of the night." The waiter's eyes flickered to the bill, then to my face. He saw the partner-level cut of my silk blouse, the quiet confidence in my eyes. He nodded, and the $100 vanished. "As you wish, madame. What can I get for you?" This was the investigation phase. I wasn't just ordering food, I was building a case. I was meticulously constructing a bill so perfectly, painfully expensive, that it would simultaneously expose him and serve as poetic justice. "Let's start with the Ostra caviar," I said, pointing to the menu. "The imperial selection, the large one." I knew from my initial perusal that this was $450. "An excellent choice," he said, unfazed. "And to drink, I'm in the mood for a very special red. Do you still have the 1990 shade Alpatras?" His eyebrows shot up. This was not a casual order. This was the most expensive red wine on their list, a bottle they kept for true connoisseurs with bottomless pockets. "Yes, madame, we do." "A bottle, please, not a glass." That was $2,200. "For my main," I continued, "I'll have the A5 Wagyu. Kobe certified, of course, the full 8-ounce portion, and a side of the truffle-infused potato puree, and the creamed spinach with roasted garlic." That was another $350. I was running the tally in my head. $450 plus $2,200 plus $350 equals $3,000. It wasn't enough. "And you know," I said, "I'm celebrating. Please bring me a glass of the Louis XIII cognac. The 50-year-old, I'll sip it. Well, I'll sip it now. Why wait?" That was it, the $600 a glass cognac, the final, damning line item. Total, $3,600. Plus the sides, the bottled water, the automatic 20% gratuity on such a large single diner bill, and the punishing city and state tax. It would land almost exactly at $3,800. It was a perfect, beautiful, devastating number. The waiter simply bowed. "At once, madame." My phone buzzed again on the table. Julian. He just told Alfie and Rachel he's flying them to Dubai on his private jet next month. Alfie is asking if the jet has a crypto wallet. I picked up the phone and replied, "Perfect. He's digging his own grave. I'm just handing him the shovel." I put the phone down and looked across the room. I could see the private alcove. Marcus was laughing, a loud, braying sound that pierced the restaurant's elegant hush. He was gesticulating, telling a story. Chloe was watching him, her face a mask of pure adoration. She was completely under his spell. My leverage wasn't a document. It wasn't a secret I could whisper. It was him. It was his suffocating, desperate ego, his need to be seen as a big shot, a high roller, the man in charge. He had snatched the host role from me, and I was simply going to let him fulfill its duties. The waiter returned, first with the cognac in a balloon glass that seemed to trap the light, then with a silver tray bearing the caviar in a crystal bowl over ice. The ceremony of the sommelier decanting the 1990 Patris was a silent, beautiful piece of theater. I took a sip of the cognac. It was like drinking velvet fire. I ate a spoonful of caviar. It was salty and perfect. I was alone, at a table for one, having the most expensive and satisfying meal of my life, and every bite tasted like victory. The first part of the trap was set. The next part required patience. For the next hour, I conducted my audit from the comfort of the lounge. I savored every bite of the Kobe beef, which was so tender it melted on the tongue. I sipped the Patris, a wine that truly did taste like history and power. I watched the pianist, and I watched the table. From my vantage point, I saw the performance in the private room. I saw Marcus order another round of $100 a glass whiskey for the table, my table, on my tab. I saw him drape his arm over Chloe's chair, his rental suit jacket pulling awkwardly. I saw him trying to engage Julian in a man-to-man conversation about finances, and I saw Julian's polite, icy responses. Julian, true to his word, was the perfect witness. He wasn't just observing, he was subtly egging Marcus on, asking leading questions. A fintech IPO, Marcus? That's impressive. The regulatory hurdles must be immense. How are you navigating the SEC? I could almost hear Marcus's bluster from across the room. The SEC? A bunch of dinosaurs. They don't get disruption, man. They don't get me. The time had come. My plate was clear, my wine glass empty. I signaled for the waiter. "The check, please," I said, "for Marcus." He returned in moments, carrying the small, black leather folio. He placed it on my table with the gravity of a diplomat. I opened it. The itemized bill was a work of art. Imperial Ostra Caviar, $450. Shadow Patris, 1990, $2,200. A5 Wagyu Kobe, $300. Truffle Puree, $75. Creamed Spinach, $75. Louis XII Cognac, $600. Subtotal, $3,700. Tax, $310.50. Auto gratuity, 20%, $740. The waiter had made a mistake. He'd added the gratuity to the subtotal, not the wine. No, wait, I looked closer. He hadn't. My subtotal was wrong. The sides were $75 each. The total wasn't $3,800. The total at the bottom of the page was $4,750.50. My heart didn't panic, it sang. It was even better. I didn't reach for my pen to sign. I didn't pull out my card. I just closed the folio. "Thank you," I said to the waiter. "Now please take this and add it to the main bill for the private room, table 12, as we discussed." The waiter, who had been so professional, finally showed a crack. He was nervous. "Madame, a charge this large, to add it to another party's bill without their signature." "You're right," I said. I pulled my own black Amex from my clutch, the heavy metal partner card. I laid it on the tray. "This is my card. My name is Elizabeth. I am the one who booked table 12. I am the one who guaranteed the reservation with this very card." His eyes widened. He understood. "The gentleman at that table," I continued, pointing across the room with my chin, "is Marcus. He has, graciously, insisted on covering everything tonight. He made a special point of it when he took my seat and called me a freeloader. You saw him. He is the host." The waiter looked at Marcus, who was at that very moment trying to light a cigar in the non-smoking dining room, only to be stopped by a passing busboy. "He seems to be enjoying the role," I said with a thin smile. "Please add this slip to his bill. I wouldn't dream of depriving him of the pleasure of paying for my meal." The waiter looked from the obnoxious guest to the quiet, powerful woman holding the black card. He made his choice. "Of course, madame," he said. The folio and my unspoken order were in his hands. This was the first reveal. I watched the waiter walk to the private room. He didn't present the bill, he just approached Marcus, who was now leaning back, expansive and drunk on his own ego. The waiter murmured something. Marcus didn't even look, he just beamed. He thought he was being asked for permission for another bottle, another round. He waved his hand, a dismissive, magnanimous gesture. Of course, keep it coming. The waiter bowed and walked away. The $4,750 slip now officially transferred to Marcus's impending doom. Marcus leaned over and kissed Chloe. He thought he was the king of the world. I took a sip of water and waited for the audit to conclude. The dinner was winding down. In the private room, the plates had been cleared and the table was littered with empty glasses. Marcus was holding forth, his voice getting louder, his lies getting more grandiose. He was trying to impress Julian, the only one at the table who was his intellectual and professional superior. "Julian, my man," Marcus slurred, "my lawyers, they're useless, I need a shark. Like you, my fintech, it's just too advanced. The SEC is trying to shut me down, they don't get it. They're trying to stifle innovation." Julian, playing his part to perfection, leaned forward. "The SEC? That's serious, Marcus. What's the core of your technology? Blockchain, AI algorithms?" "Both, exactly. It's a revolutionary new, predictive algorithm. It's going to change everything." This was my cue. The case I was building wasn't just on the dinner receipt. It was time to present the other evidence. I was sitting in the lounge, but I was not idle. I had my laptop open, propped discreetly on my knees. My fingers had been flying. I pulled up the file I had built on Marcus Ventures LLC. I had the dissolution papers from the state of Delaware. I had the 2 wire fraud complaints from Ohio, complete with the names of his ex-partners and the amounts they'd lost. I had the public filing for his impending court date in Queens over a $1,200 bill from a dry cleaner he'd stiffed. I attached them all to a new email. I typed Julian's address in the to field. Subject, Marcus. Body, he's not being investigated by the SEC. He's being sued by a dry cleaner. He's not an innovator, he's a defendant. His partners in Ohio would love to know where he is. See attached. Feel free to share. E. I hit send. Across the room, I watched Julian's phone light up on the table. He picked it up, glanced at the screen. His expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. He read the email, his thumbs scrolling. A slow, almost imperceptible smile touched the corners of his mouth. He put the phone down and looked at Marcus. "Marcus, that's fascinating," Julian said, his voice cutting through the fog of Marcus's ego. "You mentioned your partners. You know, it's a small world. I was just reading about a fintech case. A couple of fellows in Ohio. They got taken for about $80,000 by their partner, a wire fraud case. You wouldn't happen to know a Marcus Ventures LLC, would you?" The room went completely, utterly silent. The color, which had been so high in Marcus's face, drained away, leaving behind his fake, orange tan. He looked like a deflating balloon. I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered. Chloe finally spoke up, her voice trembling. "Julian, why would you say that? That's horrible. Marcus, what is he talking about?" Marcus, cornered, did what all cowards do. He lashed out. "I don't know," he yelled, standing up so quickly his chair screeched. This is slander. This is a setup." He pointed, his finger shaking, right at me, sitting across the lounge. "She put you up to this, that freeloader. She's been poisoning you against me." The spell was broken. The second, more powerful confrontation had landed. Chloe was looking at Marcus, but the adoration was gone. In its place was a new, dawning, sickening horror. She was looking at Julian, her oldest family friend, a lawyer who would not lie. And she was looking at me, the sister who had never, ever let her down. "Marcus," she whispered, "what is he talking about?" "It's nothing, baby," he said, trying to regain control, trying to smooth his rented jacket. "He's just jealous. They're all jealous of us." But the doubt was there. The case was built. The evidence was presented. All that was left was the final judgment. And as if on cue, Matthew, the maitre d', began walking toward their table, the final, consolidated bill resting in a black leather folio. This was it, the moment of truth, the final entry in the ledger. Matthew approached the private table with the somber gravity of a high court judge. He held the leather folio in two hands. Marcus, desperate to recapture his alpha male in a rented suit status, saw the check coming. He saw it as his chance to regain control, to put Julian and me back in our places. "I'll handle this," he announced, standing up. "A true entrepreneur always pays his way. Put it on my card." He snatched the folio from Matthew's hand before the maitre d' could even present it. He was trying to be impressive, to show that he didn't even need to look at the number. But he did look. He opened the leather cover. The reaction was not loud. It was a deep internal implosion. The bravado, the smirk, the fintech confidence, it all dissolved instantly. His face, which had been pale, turned a sickly ashen white. He looked ill. He fumbled with the folio, pulling out the long, itemized receipt. He saw the tasting menus. He saw the multiple bottles of wine. And then, at the bottom, he saw the transfer. The separate, itemized slip from the lounge. Imperial Ostra Caviar, $450 Shade Patris, 1990, $2,200 A5 Wagyu Kobe, $300 Louis XIII Cognac, $600 subtotal, $4,750.50, Inkle. Tax gratuity. He saw the grand total, a number well over $7,000. What is this?" he hissed, his voice a panicked whisper. He was trying to keep it quiet, but his terror was radiating. This $4,750 charge, this is wrong, this is fraud." Matthew, ever the professional, did not flinch. "Sir, that is the bill from the lounge, Madame's. You accepted the charge half an hour ago. We have it on record." I thought it was. I don't know, another bottle of wine." Marcus was frantic now, his eyes darting around. He saw me, still sitting calmly in the lounge, watching. This was his last stand. He stomped out of the alcove, the bill clutched in his hand, and marched over to my table. The entire restaurant, main floor and lounge, went silent. The pianist stopped mid-arpeggio. "You," he spat, throwing the bill onto my table. "You did this, you ordered this, you have to pay." This was my cue. I slowly dabbed my lips with my napkin, folded it, and placed it on the table. I stood up, smoothing my blouse. I was calm. I was, for the first time all night, perfectly at peace. I walked over to the private table, Marcus trailing behind me like a defeated, angry child. I stood in the empty space at the head of the table. My space. "You're right, Marcus," I said, my voice quiet but carrying in the dead silent room. "I did order it. It was, by the way, delicious." I looked at him, no anger, no emotion, just observation. "But you said, and I quote, 'This seat's not for freeloaders.'" A freeloader, by definition, is someone who takes things without paying. I am the host, Marcus. I am paying for this entire room. You took my seat. You insulted me. And then, I said, you insisted on covering it. I simply let you. This is a setup," he sputtered, his hands shaking. He pulled his wallet from his jacket. It was a flashy, logo-covered thing. He pulled out a card, not a black card, but a bright, gaudy, gold logo startup card. "Pay it," I said. "Go on, pay the bill. You're the entrepreneur. You're the one going to IPO. This should be pocket change." I leaned in just slightly. "Unless, of course, that card is just for show, like the watch, and the suit, and the car." You can't." "It's funny," I continued, my voice ablaze. "For a fintech entrepreneur, your LLC seems to have no assets. And your credit score? Well, let's just call it suboptimal. 412 last I checked. That's not even a number, it's a cry for help." The blood drained from his face. This was the moment of total exposure. That's illegal. You can't know that." "I'm a forensic accountant, Marcus. It's my job to find things people try to hide. It's what I do. He was breathing hard, trapped. He looked at Chloe, but she was staring at her plate, tears streaming down her face. He looked at Julian, who was smiling a cold, thin smile. "Fine," he shrieked. He grabbed the folio from Matthew, threw his gaudy card into it, and slammed it back down. "Run it, run it." Matthew, with a stony face, took the folio to a nearby terminal. He swiped the card. We all waited, the beep 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 of the machine entering the number. And then the sound we were all waiting for. A sharp, loud, definitive beep boop beep. "Declined." Matthew's voice was flat. "Sir, the card has been declined." The word declined hung in the air, heavier and more devastating than any insult. It was a full stop, a final judgment. Marcus's composure shattered. It wasn't a slow crumble, it was a detonation. "This is ridiculous," he yelled, his voice cracking. "This machine is broken, your system is broken, you're trying to rob me." He fumbled in his wallet and threw another card, a basic debit card, at the waiter. "Try this one." Matthew didn't even have to walk to the terminal. He had a portable machine now. He swiped it. Beep boop beep. "Declined, sir." Marcus was hyperventilating. He looked at Chloe, his face a mask of pleading, desperate rage. "Chloe, baby, give me your card. I'll pay you back. Their system is. It's." Chloe didn't even look up. She just shook her head, her shoulders shaking as she sobbed into her napkin. He was done, exposed, audited, empty. In a final, pathetic act of defiance, Marcus threw the folio onto the table, sending the declined slip scattering. "I'm not paying for this. This is a scam." And with that, he turned and stormed out of the restaurant. He didn't just walk out. He fled, pushing past a waiter carrying a tray of champagne, and burst through the heavy oak doors into the night. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't even look back at my sister. The silence he left behind was profound. Chloe completely fell apart, collapsing into a heap of sobs. Rachel and Alfie, the two sycophants, just stared, mouths open, already calculating their social distance from this disaster. I let the silence sit for a moment, then I acted. I walked over to Matthew, who looked deeply traumatized. I pulled my heavy metal partner card from my clutch. "My sincere apologies for the scene, Matthew," I said, loud enough for the room to hear. "Please run this for the entire bill, the private room and the lounge charge." I glanced at the total. "And please add a 30% gratuity for your trouble. Your staff has been wonderful." Matthew looked at the card, then at me, and his professional mask returned, flooded with relief. "At once, madame, thank you." While he was ringing up the actual payment, I walked over to the table. Julian was already rubbing Chloe's back, trying to comfort her. I sat down in the chair next to her, not the head of the table, the one right next to her. I didn't say, "I told you so." I didn't say, "I knew it." I just sat. I pushed her hair back from her tear-streaked face. I handed her my clean, silk handkerchief. "Come on," I said quietly. "Let's get you home." Julian nodded, standing up. "I'll handle them," he said, gesturing to Alfie and Rachel, who looked like they were about to bolt. "Party's over." The ride home to my apartment in the taxi was silent. Chloe cried for the first 10 minutes, a raw, painful, humiliating cry. I just sat, a solid presence next to her, letting her get it out. When we got inside, I made her tea. She sat on my sofa, curled up, looking small and so young. "You knew," she finally whispered, her voice raw. "I suspected," I corrected gently. "He confirmed it." Her face crumpled again. "You made me look like such a fool. You humiliated me." "No, Chloe," I said, sitting across from her. My voice was firm but not unkind. "I didn't humiliate you. He did. He lied to you. He used you. He was a predator and you were his mark. I stopped him from finishing the job. I exposed him. That's not humiliation, that's liberation." She looked at me, her eyes searching mine. "His credit score, you really knew it." A small smile touched my lips. 412. A fintech entrepreneur who can't pay a $300 registration fee. The numbers never lie, Chloe. The next few weeks were hard. Chloe was heartbroken, but more than that, she was deeply embarrassed. She had to untangle herself from him, which, it turned out, was easy, as he'd vanished, leaving behind a mountain of debt and a few angry partners. But something had shifted. She started coming to my apartment for dinner again, not out of obligation, but because she wanted to. We talked. For the first time, we really talked. She told me about her insecurities, her fear of not being successful like me. I told her about my fear of failing her, of not being able to protect her. The story ends about a month after the din. We were in my study, eating takeout pizza. Chloe was on my laptop, helping me organize files. She asked if she could help me with some light work. She was auditing. "Liz," she said, her voice serious. "This invoice from the caterer on the Johnson case. It's inflated. They're billing for 120 staff hours, but the security logs you pulled only show 80. I looked up from my own screen, a slow smile spreading across my face. She looked at me, a matching smile of her own. He was an idiot, wasn't he? A complete and total idiot, I agreed. "Good thing you're not a freeloader," she said, raising her slice of pizza. "Never," I said, clinking my slice against hers. The case was closed. The books were balanced. And for the first time, I knew my sister was finally, truly safe.